Hi, and welcome to Chelsi Shikongo Talks. Today, I continue to talk to women in entertainment and the arts who are making a difference and getting noticed. I'm Chelsi Shikongo. My guest today is Hildegard Titus. Hildegard is a freelance writer for the Namibia newspaper. She's a video journalist for AFP. She founded an organization called PowerPad Girls, where she won the Point of Light Award from the Commonwealth. Nominated by the British High Commission in Namibia, it recognizes outstanding individual volunteers, people who are making a change in their community, plus she's a stand-up comedian. Hildegard is also a curator of art. She's a feminist activist and recently started a campaign to remove a statue in Windhoek. She's a copywriter of advertisements and has already recently started reading tarot cards and also an upcoming yoga instructor. Welcome, Hildegard. How are you?
I'm good. Thanks so much for having me.
Yes, I'm so excited to have you here because I have so much to just uncover with you. Mm-hmm. I mean, we've been friends for quite a while, but I never thought we never really had that conversation of like, okay, so like, where you from, what you do, and it's just so nice and refreshing to be able to see that right on my show. You were born in Otjiwarongo, but grew up in Cuba and Washington, D.C. What was that like?
It was really interesting because I got to be exposed to a lot of different cultures and lots of different languages, and it kind of just, I think it kind of helped me become a person who can get along with everyone because you're always put in a different situation, and also I think it kind of encouraged my love for travel because I grew up everywhere, so I always want to be in new places and see new things and experience new cultures.
Can you speak Spanish?
I can, but I'm forgetting it a bit because I have no one to practice with.
Can't you like go like to the High Commission of Cuba
and just like start
randomly
chatting? I actually bumped into the ambassador the other day and I was like, hey, can I just come by? And they're like, yeah, sure, come over for tea. So maybe
really?
I should. Mm-hmm.
Okay, and do you think growing up elsewhere influenced your comedy? Like, do you think growing up in Cuba, in Washington, and like everywhere you've gone?
Yeah, I definitely, because I think like a lot of like people are the same everywhere, like despite our cultural differences, and there are lots of like commonalities that we have, but also like there's some like things that you wouldn't like notice like here or there. Like I don't know, I just feel like there's a lot of, every country has its own quirkiness, and I find that like really funny, like how people do certain things, or like in America how like, you know, the toilet water is up to here, or like it's very interesting, like the little observations that you can do when you live in different places.
Wait, is it like, so when you flush, it just like, it comes up and then...
No, like, so the toilet seat, like, you know how there's water, right? So ours is like here, theirs is like up there. Like, I'm sure like, it's like
you can legit like...
Almost sometimes. I was worried because I'm just like...
I know, like, what if like somebody... So, okay.
Yeah. Yes, exactly.
Okay, so how did you get into comedy?
I actually did it as a dare to myself because I wanted to get out of like my comfort zone because I'm actually kind of shy sometimes, and I wanted to do like spoken word, and I wanted to do song nights, and I wanted to do comedy. And then so the comedy was the first one on my list, and then I auditioned for a show and they're like, oh, you're funny, you should come and try it out. And I was like, oh, okay. And basically I just decided to like share all the awkward things that happened to me, and you know.
Like, where was this? Where did this happen? Like, where was your first show?
It was at the Warehouse with Free Your Mind, and yeah, I remember my first show, like I was so nervous, but people were laughing and I was like, oh, okay, maybe I should keep doing this, and that's kind of how I got into comedy.
I remember my first time as well. I was in Milan and I just convinced myself that I'm funny. I was just like, I think I'm funny. Like, people always laugh at my jokes, not at me.
Yeah.
For sure. So, and then I was in Cape Town. I was in Milan and I was going to Cape Town that time. And I went to Cape Town Comedy Club. I went to watch all the acts and I was like, listen, guys, I also want to do this. And they were like super supportive. They were like, call this person and tell them I recommended you to go there. And I did my first open mic night, and like all the comedians in Cape Town showed up and they came to support me. It was so cool. Like, I just never had that experience. I didn't think they would be that open because, you know, as a female or woman comedian, you do your research. And with Tiffany Haddish, she was just like, did not have the same experience. You know, she was just like, they were just so rude and they wanted like more from her, and they were just like, they just see you as a body. So I was going in with those expectations, but then when I was on stage, it was just like something completely different. And the feedback that I was getting, and they were like, you know, maybe do the joke this way. It was just so amazing. So did you have that same experience?
Yeah, no, definitely, because like I think comedy is such a hard thing to do because you never know what's going to make people laugh. And like every time like you practice and you do your rehearsals, you never know like how it's actually going to be on stage and stuff like that. So getting feedbacks from other comics is really nice. And I mean, as you know, like there's not that many lady comics in Windhoek as well. So I think it's really nice for us to have a community as lady comics, but also to have the support from, you know, the male comics as well.
I know. So you would say that this is something that you want to do long term?
Definitely. As long as I have funny things happening to me, I'm going to show
I feel like there's always funny things happening.
I know.
You can always sneak something into like some funny scenario. I feel like everything is always funny, especially like growing up in Namibia.
Yeah.
Wafish Bay specifically for me, I just found everything as an adult so funny. What was like so important to us. And that's basically how Namibian girl humor was birthed as well. Just like thinking back what was important to me in high school. And just like, okay, maybe this is content, and it was, so I totally relate.
I think it's also like with the trauma,
girl,
like comedy is just a way for us to like deal through our trauma
it's
and be like,
free
listen,
therapy.
yeah, like this happened to me, especially like because a lot of my comedy is like feminist and stuff like that, so like making jokes about being catcalled and that kind of stuff. It's just a way to like deal with the difficulties of being a woman sometimes.
Does it come easy to you to do comedy, to do stand-up comedy?
I mean, in the beginning it didn't, but now, like, literally, I just, like, I can make jokes based on, like, whatever's happening to me. So, yeah, it's come easier because I've gotten more comfortable in making fun of myself.
Do you have any struggles? Because for me, what I struggle with is, like sort of communicating with the audience while I'm on stage, because I'm always just thinking about my set and the timing and what I want, what jokes I want to say. Do you have that same struggle? Like, what are your struggles, would you say?
I think like when the audience starts heckling, then I forget my lines and then I go off on a tangent. But if I'm very relaxed and comfortable with my material, I'm just like, if I'm having fun, I just keep going and going and going.
What was like the worst heckle you've had?
Oof, someone was making fun of my accent because they're like, we can't understand you, you're speaking funny English. And I'm just like, I'm sorry, this is how I speak. Like,
what is funny English?
I don't know, but they were like, you know, making fun of how I speak. And I was just like, guys, how am I supposed to change that? But we kept on going, you know.
Oh, you just kept on going. But like, do you get that a lot where people feel like because you grew up in the States that you sort of have an American accent?
Yeah, but I also feel like my accent changes depending around who I am. Like, it's not even a conscious thing. Like, so when I go visit like my mom in the UK, like my accent changes, or if I'm in the States, it changes. Like, it definitely changes. I guess it's like code switching as well. Like, depending on who I'm speaking to, I change how I speak.
Okay. Can you speak Afrikaans? Like, do you have like a Namibian
It comes out, especially when I'm pissed off. Like, I mean, when I'm upset.
Yes.
It definitely comes out sometimes. But my Afrikaans is, broken, like so broken. Like, I remember in school, like I used to like, my Afrikaans teachers were not happy with me, so.
Oh, okay. And then how do you start writing your gags? Like, what is your time plan? How do you plan?
My comedy?
Your strategy.
My strategy is literally like, so some comics make fun of like other people, I make fun of myself. And I think of all the funny things that have happened to me and like hope people can relate to it. I mean, my approach is like, let's laugh at my trauma together, you know?
Yay. Like creating like a support group with the audience in that time.
Exactly.
I also noticed that there's not a lot about your, like nothing about your private life out there, which is good, I guess, for women. I don't know why that's a thing. I even feel like really cringy saying it to you, because it's like men are allowed to put their private lives out there if they want, and then they get praised for it even. So like, why is that? Why is it a thing for you to be like, work should only be out there, people shouldn't know who I'm seeing or what I'm doing?
I mean,
is there someone as well?
I mean, I'm currently single, so that's also probably why there's nothing there. It's mostly, I mean, I could think if I'm in a serious relationship, I do post my partner, but at the moment, I'm living my best life, so no one's going to be on my feed until, you know, that changes, so.
Oh, okay, but do you like keeping it that way? Or do you, like you said, if you're in a relationship, you post about it, but do you like it that way, or are you more of like a private life, happy life?
I don't mind either way. Like, I don't mind posting people. Like, I know some people like, oh, they won't post their boyfriends because I'm like, what if like they cheat on them, then they have to delete. I'm like, it's fine, I'll post you, and then when it's over, I'll delete you. Like, I'm very chill about it.
You just like archive.
Yeah, exactly. I never delete videos or photos. I just keep them for my memories when I'm 85.
Yeah, because I'm such a hopeless romantic as well, and I'm just like, there's some things that I did with somebody that I'm just like, but I'm also more of a moment person. Like, I remember a lot of the things. I think in my previous life I was an elephant, because like I
the
remember
memories.
so much.
Yeah.
And I could be like in the vibe.
Yeah.
But if you ask me tomorrow what happened, I'll tell you.
Yeah,
I
no,
can even direct
exactly.
you to my house while I'm like, and like, okay, we're not even going to get into that because we're here to talk about women in entertainment. What do you think are the biggest challenges for women in the arts today?
I feel like a lot of us are underpaid, and I think we're not taken as seriously as men are. And like, I remember every now and then, like I'll read an article, like for example, like how many women artists are in certain museums, or how many like women comics are there, or like with anything, like, or even like women producers, women writers, women DJs, like literally like we exist, but we're not given the same platforms as men. And when we are given the same platforms as men, a lot of times we're sexualized or objectified, or we're kind of like, molded into this idea. So I think it's like, as much as we've progressed as a society, I think there's still a long way to go in terms of understanding that women are just like, I'm not good because I'm a woman, I'm just good. You know what I'm saying? It's always like, oh, she's a great woman comic versus she's just a good comic, So I think it's a lot of like, there's still a long way to go for people to understand that women are just good at what they do, not because we're women, just because we're good at it.
And I feel like yet again we have a long way to go, but I think what we can do as well is just sort of work with each other, work together, collaborate with each other, come together as one. Like if I have an event, I'll have you as the host, and then I'll have a woman DJ curate the event, and little things like that, just coming together and supporting each other and supporting women. And I'm really looking forward to having that space. I mean, I have built this platform, but I'm hoping to sort of also add some value to the person's life and the person's work ethic, So let's talk a little bit about PowerPad Girls. You set up that organization a few years ago in 2017. What made you take action to do something?
I remember I was reading an article in the newspaper about how some girls were like using whatever they could find to,
I think I remember that article as well.
Yeah, like about catching their menses and stuff. And it broke my heart because I was just like, guys, like no one chooses to menstruate. Like we shouldn't like, and like it was also explaining how a lot of them ended up missing school because they were embarrassed or because they didn't have a pad to go to school with. And it's like, it's not okay that, in 2020, like 2022 even, that someone's missing out school because of a bodily function, you know what I mean? So I got, I remember at the old JoJo's, like I used to go there a lot, and I asked them if, hey, could we have a quiz night? And then the money that we get from it would use to buy pads. And that's kind of how it started. And different women started approaching me saying like, hey, how can we help? And we kind of, that's how the PowerPad Girls was born. Like we just decided that this is an issue, what can we do about it? And it kind of just took off from there. Yeah.
What a beautiful woman empowerment story. Like that is so amazing. Hildegard, tell us about some of your achievements with the organization.
I think, well, for me, the biggest achievement is being able to give the pads to the people who need them the most and going out to the schools and doing like the outreach that way, because every school is different. Like, I mean, we've been all over the country. We've been to like as far south as Katisburg, to like as far up north as like near Sumkwe. And I think every school is different, and getting to like learn about the culture, about the students as well, because when we're talking to them, we ask them about like, the different menstrual practices in their culture, what they call it in their language. And then it's kind of like a reciprocal relationship, because as much as we're teaching them about menstruation and, sexual health rights, they're also teaching us about the different ways that our different cultures practice it. So for me, that's a really big achievement, just being able to be like, okay, we've worked so hard to raise this money, and now we get to give it to the people who need it, but also, kind of talk to them about, menstruation, about reproductive health, about all these things. For me, that's always the biggest achievement. And then also, I think last year, was it the year before, so got the Point of Light Award for the volunteer work that we've been doing. And it was really like, I don't know, I guess humbling, because sometimes when you're so busy doing the work, you don't take a step back to realize how much of an impact your work does. And I think being recognized for that was really nice as well. Yeah,
congratulations to that. It's such a huge achievement for like Namibian women. Is period poverty still a big issue in this country?
Yes, and it's I feel like it's something that like can't be changed unless we change our policy as well, because like like when you go to a bathroom, there's always toilet paper. So I think we should also move to the point where we realize that we need to have pads everywhere, or like menstrual products everywhere, because again, like it's a bodily function. It's a fact that if you have a uterus, you're most likely going to bleed every single month. So for us, one big thing is we're trying to create like policy to push the government to at least make sure that any school-going child has free access to menstrual products, but also specifically like reusable menstrual products because they're more economically friendly, those are more environmentally friendly. And for us, we focused a lot on reusable menstrual pads, but now we're also looking more into using like menstrual cups as well, because so what we do when we go to the schools, we talk to them about the different options, like we show them this is a pad, this is a tampon, this is a moon cup, and a lot of the learners have been interested in menstrual cups as well, because they lost 5 years, 6 years, we take good care of them, and they're less of a hassle in terms of like having to wash them, because you literally just like pour it out and rinse it and start again. So I think definitely making it accessible to everyone and also making it economically and environmentally friendly is kind of what we are focused on as well with pads, because period poverty is not going to end as long as we continue to, I know last year they removed period tax, which is great on like tampon products and pads, but like the fact is people can't even afford them, so taking away the tax is not going to make a difference to the average. It's okay for the working person or person who has an income, but for the people who don't, like it doesn't really change it. So that's kind of what we really want to push for.
Do you think there will ever come a time where we would be seeing like vending machines, like sanitary product vending machines in Namibia, or just like, even like you said, in the cubicles, there needs to be a sanitary product in there? Do you think Namibia would ever get to a place like that?
I definitely hope so. And we're actually about to launch a petition to try and push to suggest to the government to do that, because we've been talking to some of our colleagues in other countries, like in India, for example, where they do have free vending machines in the school bathrooms, and it's been a very successful endeavor for them. So I think there's no reason why we shouldn't have the same thing. Like I know a lot of other countries are making menstrual products free.
As well.
Yeah.
I've also seen in the States as well.
Yeah,
at universities as well. Yeah.
Exactly. I think even in Botswana. So it's like, again, like why can't we do the same thing? I know a lot of, like, I think there is a policy like where in the education that they do give a percentage of their budget to giving pads to like each school, but again it's disposable pads, and like like everyone's going to bleed once a month, and there's only so many pads you can give away. So moving toward more sustainable menstrual products would be more long-term effective.
Does like the shops we have here, do you think they sell reusable sanitary products?
Sometimes they do. I know that there are places where you can get a menstrual cup, and you can sometimes get the reusable pads at Clicks. There are different shops around the country that do sell them, but for us specifically, we order ours in bulk. There are also local people who make reusable pads, like there's Ann pads as well.
Okay.
And then we get ours called Palesa pads from South Africa as well. So it's also an opportunity for, Namibian industry to also start making reusable pads or even menstrual cups, because again, like, this is an issue that's always going to face, people with uteruses. So there is a lot of room for growth in that department, I think.
Okay, but like, what if it comes to a point of like the government saying they don't have enough money? Like, how do you think they could come together? Because obviously, yet again, budget is going to be a problem. So how do you think the encouragement or suggesting to the government, making this sort of possible for anyone who has a uterus? How can they come? Like, how can we all meet at
the same place?
Yeah.
I think definitely the involvement of like other NGOs and also the private sector. And I think if the government recognizes that, like, making this small investment, like for example, a disposable pad, like a packet is like maybe $50, right? And then you use it for one period, whereas a reusable menstrual pad or moon cup lasts you 3 to 5 years depending on how you take care of it, and that costs like maybe $200 for a packet of 3 or 4, or a menstrual cup will cost you around $350, and for 5 years you don't have to buy a pad again, or you don't have to buy a moon cup again. So it is a bit of investment in the beginning, but it lasts so much longer. So 5 years is how long someone is from like grade 7 until grade 12. You know what I mean? So it makes sense that like this would cover this person until they finish school, and then by then hopefully they'd have a job where they'd be able to buy it for themselves. So I think, because the fact is, if someone's missing school because they can't afford a pad, they're missing out on lectures, they're not able to concentrate, and also the thing about like people having really bad menstrual pads, like I think we should also change our policy in including for like working people that like you should be able to have the day off if you have really bad cramps, because I don't know, like people assume that women, that it's not that bad, but like there are people who have debilitating periods where they literally can't even stand up, and then you're forced to go to work. And I think, again, we need to understand that like half of the population goes through this, so we need to create policy that makes it like normalize that, we should think about it. Exactly.
Periods are still stigmatized in many of our communities. Do you have to educate the parents as well as the government?
So we have not actually focused a lot on the parents. We've mostly focused on the learners and the teachers. So when we go out to do the workshops, the teachers are also in the classroom, and some of the teachers are very educated on it and are comfortable with it, but some teachers aren't comfortable talking about it. And ultimately, we can't force parents to, to think what we think or to be comfortable to talk to these discussions. But the fact that so many children spend so much time at school, this is a space where they can get a lot of information. And if they're comfortable talking to adults there, then they can make more informed choices about their reproductive health, about consent, and about sex. A lot of people like to think that their children aren't having sex, or that teenagers aren't having sex, but the fact is they are. That's why we have such high teenage pregnancy, statistics in Namibia. And our approach is that we want to give them as much information as possible so that when they do decide to have sex, they're able to make the best decisions for themselves. Because right now, when we go to do these workshops, sometimes the questions that the children ask you are they're very you can't believe someone's asking you that. It's because someone else told them that. And it's because they're not having these conversations with their parents. They're not having conversations with their teachers. So they're having all this misinformation. And then this is why, they're not being able to make the right decisions for themselves because they don't know the truth. So that's kind of our approach. It's if we talk about it, we're not encouraging them to have sex, but if they do, they'll know what to do. They'll know how to protect themselves. They know that you can't get you can't get pregnant on your period, or you can't catch an STI if you don't wear a condom, this kind of stuff.
Yeah. Do you think teachers are doing enough in that sense? Do you think that they're telling them enough, that they're teaching them enough about period poverty, reproductive health, sex education?
It depends. Some schools are very good with it and others not so much. But I also realize a lot of the schools a lot of teachers are overwhelmed. We've gone to schools where the teachers can't even speak to their pupils because they don't speak the same language. You know what I mean? So it's how are you going to teach someone even mathematics if you don't understand the same language? And I think that, again, just shows how much the government really needs to focus on education. And it's not enough to build a school if you don't have teachers who can speak the same language as students or who understand the cultural backgrounds of different students. And this is kind of it's period poverty and menstrual things is it's just the tip of the iceberg on how much we need to reform the education system where people can actually, teach. And also understanding that just because I'm a teacher and culturally I don't believe in this doesn't mean I should keep this information from learners, because again, the more knowledge someone has, the better educated they can be in making decisions for themselves. But if you keep information to yourself, they'll never be able to make their own decisions.
Yeah. That's it for this episode of Chelsi Shikongo Talks. We will be back with part 2 where we will talk more to Hildegard Titus about women in entertainment and the challenges facing women in the industry.